The great Paul Newman called this place heaven on earth. It's Virginia International Raceway. Welcome in, fans. Round 10 of the 2024 season for the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. Race 2 of the weekend from here at VIR. What an absolutely gorgeous day, and ready to go racing here at VIR. And exactly where is it? Well, it's Southern Virginia. You actually have to cross into North Carolina to get to the racetrack and then back into Virginia, right along the Dan River. What a beautiful facility, built back in the early 50s, and it has been resurrected in the 90s and turned into the Motorsports Country Club that it is today. Turn 1, big elevation change, flying up through the S's to turn 12, known as Oak Tree. That 200-year-old tree is no longer there, but they did take an acorn from it, and a new one is growing. Down the long back straightaway into turn 14, heavy braking, and then the roller coaster, the plunge downhill through Hogpen, turn 17, and you've completed a lap here at VIR. Say race number 2 of the weekend. Before we get to race number 2, let's take a look back at race number 1. And the championship is still open in the LMP3 category, but for Jagger Jones in the black and red number 87, he needs to win every race, and he needs to best Stephen Agakani in the 6. From the start, Jones on the pole leaps to the lead, doing what he needs to do to stay in this championship. Didn't take long, though. Problems on the racetrack for Alex Kirby aboard the number 7. Gets off the road, collects a WeatherTech banner. We bring out the full course yellow for that. Got back under racing. Brian Thien is up in Oak Tree, and Brian Thienes gets the short end of that stick. And then more hard racing as the leaders working through GSX traffic. Frank Depew gets caught up behind the 87 of Jagger Jones. He goes around. Couple of other cars off the racetrack as well, and then a little push and shove. Jordan Minzen trying to get past the car in front of him, has an issue. He goes around, but for Luca Mars, wow, what a win in the GSX category by over 45 seconds. Luca Mars flying in that Mustang, and for Jagger Jones, he wins it overall, his 6th win on track in the 2024 season. Again, doing everything he can to try to claw away at the lead that Stephen Agakani has. That is a long road to hoe. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Till along with Jeremy Shaw. And Jeremy, talk about that job that Jagger Jones has to do. He's doing his part, but he needs some bad luck for Stephen Agakani.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it's almost locked in now for the championship leader, Stephen Agakani. Really, all he's got to do is turn up to the races, because he holds 2,900 points at the moment to the 2,330 of Jagger Jones. Brian Thienes is actually still ahead of Jones by 10 points on 2,340, so that's a 560 point gap. I mean, look, there's still 1,050 points up for grabs here, but even if you finish in 9th position, you only lose 130 points to the overall race winner. So it's a pretty tall order, and Stephen Agakani basically has to just show up. But you know, that's not the way these guys race. They're going to race for everything they possibly can. But what is up for grabs is the LMP3 Teams Championship, because prior to this weekend, even though Jagger Jones didn't do the first two races of the season at Daytona, young Canadian Marco Kasich did, the points that he scored there meant that coming into this weekend, Fast MD Racing with Remstar, which is Jagger Jones' car number 87, and the MLT Motorsports number 6 of Stephen Agakani were tied on points on 2580. So with the win yesterday, Fast MD Racing with Remstar move into that championship lead. So that is very much up for grabs, Brian.
Very much up for grabs. You see the IMSA AMR safety team, they are ready to go to work. Hopefully it'll be a boring day for them. Prototypes and GT-based cars in the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. 2 different classes, and on the front row, Jagger Jones on the pole again in that black and red number 87 Duquesne chassis. Stephen Agakani, championship leader alongside, and in GSX, Luca Mars, man, he put it to the field in GSX yesterday aboard his core Mustang, that GT4 Mustang, and he starts on pole in the GSX category today. Alongside him, Moisey Uretsky aboard his Porsche, about to go green here at VIR. And I'm wondering, with the championship becoming even more locked down for Stephen Agakani, is he going to race a little bit differently today? We're about to find out. Down the front straightaway, there's a bend in it. Drivers can't see the flag just yet. Nice slow start. Everybody aligned just as they should be. Jagger Jones waiting to get into the start zone that has been identified by the officials to him. When he gets there, he'll pull the trigger. Off we go. He jumps in the throttle. That big V8 comes to life. We are racing in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. And Jagger Jones, Jeremy, doing exactly what he did yesterday. A big leap at the start.
Yeah, and yesterday he was able to pull out an appreciable gap over the first couple of laps. I mean, he really got on the case right away in that Remstar car number 87. It's the lone Duquesne chassis in the field. All the other runners in LMP3 using the Ligier JSP 320. But Jagger Jones was off to a hot start yesterday, and Agakani kind of reeled him in, and then there was a full course caution which brought him right on his tail, and then he followed him for most of the rest of the race. But today we'll see whether he could do the same there out front for Jagger Jones.
Very different track conditions for these drivers this morning. It was warm yesterday, mid-80s. Right now, on track, only 68 degrees. So that's going to be a much cooler temperature, which means it's going to take longer for these Michelin tires to get up to temp and pressure. These first few laps, Jeremy, I'm thinking it's going to be like these drivers are driving on ice. There's not going to be a lot of grip on the surface as cool as it is right now.
Yeah, that's certainly something that the drivers are going to have to pay attention to. Just got a glimpse there of the runners in GSX, and out in front again is Luca Mars, as you said, just robbed away from everybody yesterday. Mark Brummond has started again well in this race. He's moved up to second position at the start, and is leading from Scott Blind, I think, who's moved up to third position there as they came around Oak Tree Corner.
Interesting when you talk about the championship, and I mentioned it as they came onto the front straightaway. We're about to complete lap number 1 of this 45-minute contest here at VIR. I'm wondering, once we leave here and we head to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for the final 2 rounds, if indeed the championship is basically insurmountable, will we see Stephen Agakani push a little harder? He's driven and managed his championship really, really well over these last several races, being very careful not to stick his nose in and risk being knocked out of the race. But when it gets to the point where, like you said, just show up and get last place points and you'll win the championship, maybe we'll see him mount a charge that perhaps he wasn't willing to, 2, 3, 4 races ago.
Yeah, I mean, fair comment, but this is the second race of the weekend. He's already started it, so even if he finishes last here, he scores 9th place points, which is 220. So as I say, he'll only lose 130 to Jagger Jones, assuming Jones goes on to win the race. But I don't think he's going to race any differently in any case. Look, he's 21 years old. He's an aspiring superstar in this sport, and he's certainly got the talent, no question about that. And I think he pushes as hard as he possibly can, but I think just at this stage in the race in particular, Jagger Jones, with all the experience he's had in so many different cars, I mean, stock cars, off-road, on-road, you name it, he's driven it and raced it. And I think that experience is what's enabled him to really get on the case instantly as soon as we go green and get the most out of the car when it's still on cold tyres. And that's proven the difference right now. And that's something that Agakani, he's again 21 years old, so he's only been racing. He's been racing for 3 or 4 years now, or 4 or 5 years, I guess, because he started at 16. But he still doesn't have the same breadth of experience that Jagger Jones does. And I think he's pushing hard, and he wants to win as many races as he possibly can.
And certainly he wants to close the season out with some victories, that is for sure. You watched the 86 flash by, Jonathan Hirschberg. That's a name that's familiar to the One-Make series that IMSA sanctions or sponsors, I should say, Jeremy, and that's the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. We've seen Jonathan Hirschberg in that series before. His first foray this weekend into the prototype category here in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. And I think he's found a new home, perhaps, because a lot of times these drivers step into this P3-based machinery and they absolutely love the power and downforce that it has. The Lamborghini has more power, but this car has more downforce.
Yeah, and I think he had a great time yesterday. He had a really good start to the race, to John Hirschberg, but he's kind of tailed off a little bit midway through and then lost a couple of positions. And but still, I think he loved it, and he had a test here a few weeks ago. He's working with Brian Theonis as his sort of co-driver there at Forte Racing, also with Patrick Liddy, who's serving as his driver coach. They raced together in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, he knows he's got a lot to learn. He's done quite a bit of testing out at the Thermal Club in Southern California. He's driven radical sports cars out at Spring Mountain as well. So, reasonable amount of experience, just not race experience, and that's what it was new yesterday for John Hirschberg.
Interesting looking at GSX right now, that light blue and silver number 88 trying to charge forward. That's Patrick Wilmot. He started third. I'm not sure how he has ended up back where he is right now in the 6th position. He had a great run yesterday, had to start from the back after a technical infraction in qualifying, but he has been shuffled back in the order, and now he's going to have to work his way back forward. Mark Brumman in the 25 Autotechnic BMW up in 2nd place behind Luca Mars right now. That's exactly where he was yesterday, and hats off to Brumman. The drive of his career, at least as far as I've seen him race over the last couple of years, he had yesterday, and he's got another good run going right now, but I wonder what happened to Patrick Wilmot.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, he must have lost ground. He must have got kind of shuffled out in the first corner, I think, and lost a few positions because, as you say, lined up third on the grid. A tremendous run yesterday. I mean, he made light of the fact that he had to start from the back and worked his way through very, very nicely indeed. And it served him well in the points table too, because with the Jesse Lazare unable to start the McLaren this weekend, that has actually moved. With the 3rd place finish yesterday, Patrick Wilmot has moved up to 2nd place in the overall championship behind Luca Mars, who's pretty much again a runaway winner. 2860 points coming into this race today for Luca Mars, 2340, so a 520 point deficit for Patrick Wilmot, who moves that split decision BMW up into 2nd place in the points.
We talk about the great day for Mark Brumman. Just behind him right now, you see the 82 of Berman. He had a good run yesterday until he kind of got mixed up in some stuff and dropped back a little bit. So he's looking to put the pressure on Brumman if he can get his Aston Martin up to him. Now, it's interesting, Jeremy. I talked about the weather in this racetrack, a very different track than they were on yesterday. Basically, yesterday started middle of the day, right at noon, and a very different track as far as the temperature, both ambient and the track surface temperature. So I'm thinking that, without a chance to test it, you kind of think, well, maybe this is a different racetrack. The setup that you had yesterday may not be working. The other thing that I think is interesting in looking at that long shot of the 82, does it look to you like perhaps the under tray is hanging down a little bit there on the left front? It looked like it was dropped down a little bit, or maybe it's just some shadow, or maybe when he gets speed in the car, it gets drawn down onto the track surface just a little bit.
Yeah, well, hopefully your eyes are deceiving you, but that's what certainly he will be hoping. He's running nicely there, as you say, Brady Berman. This is his home racetrack. He loves this place. He's from Virginia Beach, Virginia. He doesn't do an awful lot of racing. And he's only done a couple of races this season at the first round of the championship. Since then, he's been kind of other ventures that he's been concentrating on. But he's doing some Michelin Pilot Challenge races along with his good buddy Scott Blind, who's also in this race about 2 or 3 positions behind him. So that'll please him. He's made a really good return this weekend. As you say, a really strong run yesterday, and again now chasing Mark Brumman and not losing out at all over these first 3 or 4 laps of the race.
Really think the BMW well suited for this racetrack. And the one thing I don't think these drivers are going to have to worry about this morning, back to track temperature and ambient, is tire degradation. And it's something that, this is a high energy racetrack, a lot of load on those Michelin tires as you climb through the S's here and then down through the roller coaster area. So on days where the temperature begins to rise and gets above 80 degrees, you really start to get that tire degradation. The drivers were saying after yesterday's race, towards the end, it got really, really slick. We saw Berman with a little slide there, not uncharacteristic at all for that section of the racetrack up into turn 11 and 12. But what I was saying, Jeremy, I don't think tire degradation is going to be as big of a factor as it was yesterday. And maybe what I see right there as we watch the 88 down the back straightaway, maybe that answers what happened to Patrick Wilmot. It looks like the dive plane on the left front is askew.
It does, doesn't it? I think he must have had some contact there at that first corner, and you know, he's pressuring Frank Depew, and certainly Frank Depew, he's another guy had a really good run yesterday as well, running in 4th position. He's another local guy, of course. This is his home racetrack, another Virginian from Richmond. So he's looking to give a good account of himself, as he did yesterday, until he too had some problems later on. He got kind of caught out by some LMP3 traffic and had a spin, but the experience from yesterday morning certainly helped him in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race later in the afternoon, where again he had an excellent run going all the way through his stint, and handed over the car to Robin Liddell, who finished in the top 5, despite the fact that, I mean, there was a slight miscue for Depew. He ran off the road and damaged the front splitter. Well, took off the front splitter, in fact. But other than that,
more than damage.
Yeah, true. Other than that, it was a tremendous run by Frank, and again, a super battle between these two right here.
Well, when you look at the front of the BMW M4 that Patrick Wilmot is piloting right now, I don't think he damaged the dive planes, Jeremy. I think that's a part of someone else's car that has attached itself to the left front. So somebody is missing something. You see the 2 dive planes for Wilmot are still on the left front, but that piece, I'm not sure whose car it's off of, is affixed to the front bumper just above the dive planes.
Yeah, you're right. That's kind of curious, isn't it? Yeah, that certainly isn't going to help the aerodynamic balance of that car, but notwithstanding that, he's managed to get past Frank Depew, and right behind him is that fluorescent car, that is Scott Blind, who had some difficulties on the practice day, and also yesterday in the race. Actually, it wasn't a particularly good outing for him, but he and Brady Berman, they're going to be doing the final couple of Michelin Pilot Challenge races, also in an Aston Martin, running in the bronze category, and they're very much looking forward to driving together, as they did one race earlier in the season. They're going to finish off the year driving as co-drivers rather than against each other.
VP Racing Sports Car Challenge from Virginia International Raceway. Just over 30 minutes to go here in this 45-minute sprint. 33 minutes, in fact. Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you, and Jagger Jones picking up where he left off yesterday, Jeremy, flashing down through the roller coaster in a very familiar spot, and that is in first place. And you look at Jagger Jones when he arrived at St. Pete for his first race. He missed the first 2 races, each held at Daytona International Speedway, missed those as we talked about, but has been perfect on the racetrack ever since. He has literally won on track every race that he has run since then. The victory taken away in round 1 at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park because of a technical infraction. But other than that, he has been literally perfect, and you don't see that very much in motorsports at all. And this series, you and I have talked about it, I think it's such a great creation because it gives young drivers an opportunity to learn multi-class racing, and it gives experienced drivers, like we were talking about Frank Depew, Mark Brumman, Brady Berman, some of these other guys, gives them an opportunity to run extra laps on the race weekend. Some of those drivers run in Michelin Pilot Challenge with a co-driver, but they come and run on these weekends where VP Racing Sports Car Challenge is running. They get more time on track. They're running the same car or the same brand of car, same make of car as they're running in Michelin Pilot Challenge, and it gives them additional track time, and I think it's what makes the series so successful. Win a championship here, you've said something. Win races here, you've said something. And it's a great stepping stone for that multi-class sports car racing career, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, it really is, and just look at last year's GSX champion, Francis Seldorf. Really, that was his first full season of racing 1 year ago. He ended up winning the championship for Turner Motorsport. This year, stepped up into the Michelin Pilot Challenge. He's doing a super job. He's been qualifying, well, right around or just outside the top 5 on a regular basis. You know, he's driving with Robbie Foley and getting a lot of good results there. So it certainly is a good stepping stone. And these cars, they are, the GSX cars are identical to the specifications running in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Same tyres, same weight, same everything. So there's a lot of data to be transferred there. Here comes the interesting part of the race. So already the overall leaders, or leader at least, Jagger Jones, has caught up to this main pack of GSX cars. So it's now going to work its way through. And that's the tricky bit during this race, because there's a big speed differential between these cars. Jagger Jones here, he's got to be a little bit careful he doesn't ruin anybody else's race. And Sean Quinlan there in that orange and blue used to be BMW. They switched to a Ford a while ago, and he did a really good job there, watching his mirrors, making sure he knew that Jagger Jones was clear of him before he turned in to the S's there.
Yeah, these are the lessons that you learn in multi-class racing, and that's for the GSX drivers as well as the P3 drivers. It gives them the opportunity to learn how to be fast and to learn how to be the faster class. As you look at fastest laps up there at the top of the screen, Jagger Jones the quickest right now in the P3 category by just a tenth of a second or so over Stephen Agakani, and it just kind of gives you an idea. You're going to see these lap times, I would imagine, fall off 2 or 3 seconds at least, Jeremy, on a lap like this where they're having to work through that traffic. I look at the last lap for Jagger Jones, it was a 42.93. It'll be interesting to see how much working through traffic takes from that lap. And for Stephen Agakani, I think he's managed to catch the traffic at the worst possible place, and that was going up through the S's. Yeah, a 46.6 on this lap for Jagger Jones. So over 4-second differential between the last lap, or right around a 4-second differential from the last lap when he had clean sailing to this lap as they were having to work through traffic.
Yeah, and he worked his way through it fairly well as well. In fact, he pulled out 0.4 of a second over Stephen Agakani on that lap. So it was an excellent job that Jagger Jones did. Now he's clear of that traffic. He'll catch up with Luca Mars, who's still already way out in front. 23 seconds clear after just 8 laps for Luca Mars, the youngster in that Core Motorsports Ford Mustang. But Agakani again, look, he's doing a good job here, and that all the drivers are doing a good job. They're all paying attention to their mirrors, to their spotters. A lot of the teams have spotters up in that part of the racetrack, so they can tell them there are faster cars coming up behind them.
It's just got to be excruciating for Stephen Agakani, though. You look at where he has caught this GSX traffic, and it's just at the wrong place each time. It seems like Mark Brumman there has learned by watching WeatherTech and by running in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. You see how he put the BMW in the middle of the racetrack headed into turn 11. He said, I know you're there, Mr. Prototype, but you're not going to pass me here. It's just too dangerous. I'm not going to let it happen. He parked it there in the middle of the racetrack, and as he came out of 12, he let Agakani go. But sometimes in the slower class cars, you see it in the WeatherTech series as well, in the GT3 cars, that GTD or GTD Pro, you'll see those guys put it in the middle of the road in the braking zone saying, I know you're there, but I'm not going to put myself at risk to let you go by right now.
Yep. You just got to be decisive, and as you say, if you're the driver that's being passed in a GSX car, you've got to make it perfectly clear to the prototype that you know he's a lot faster than you, but you can either make his life easy by where you put your car on the racetrack. You can make it perfectly clear, so whether you can pass me now or no you can't, as they're coming into a corner. But there is Luca Mars again in that Core Motorsports Ford Mustang. I mean, he's an impressive young man as well, as are the two front runners in LMP3. But Luca Mars, he's from Sewickley, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Pittsburgh. He's been racing now for a couple of years, but he's certainly a real talent, and just 18 years of age now. And yesterday I had a brilliant run in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race, taking advantage again of the experience he gained earlier in the day, and he came through the pack and finished on the podium yesterday in Pilot Challenge. So that was a tremendous run for him, and he was hoping to have more of a battle this weekend. Last time out at Motorsport, he had to battle with not only Jesse Lazare in the Motorsports in Action McLaren, unfortunately was withdrawn from this race after a shunt on Friday in practice, but also the FaZe Competition Mercedes of Josh Green, who actually went on to win the final race north of the border at Canadian Town Motorsport Park, but unfortunately not here this weekend. There's a problem for Mark Brumman. Is that a puncture on the right rear?
Yeah, the right rear down and Brumman dropping back. That's going to move Wilmot up to third, or up to second, I should say. And the question is, was there contact between those two cars? Or was it a prototype that perhaps got into the right rear, but it has cut that Michelin tire down? And this has created all kinds of chaos down through the roller coaster. Brumman needs to be on the right side of the road. He's like, guys, I got a problem. I need to get over there so I can get to pit in. And everybody else streaming through, you know, you have a problem going down the back straightaway, and you know it's going to be difficult to get down through the roller coaster and stay out of everybody's way. The great drive that Mark Brumman put in is going to be cut short as he has to come to the pits. And obviously in a sprint race like this with no pit stops and not a lot of time to make up time when you have a problem, this is going to be painful for him. We'll see if they can get that right rear tire changed and get out, stay on the lead lap. If he can do that, Jeremy, and we get a full course caution, he can be back into the fight, but this is going to be painful.
Yeah, it is, and a great shame for Mark because it was, again, a tremendous run. He looked like he had everybody handled there in second position, and curious that he should pick up a puncture. We don't see that very often in here, but Auto Technique crew is going to go to work and get him back out on the racetrack. So, yeah, he's going to need a full course to catch up at the back of the field, but the good news is he shouldn't lose a lap. So if there is an incident out on the racetrack and we do go full course caution, he will be able to make up that ground, and then things will get really interesting for him.
And Mark Brumman out of the pits now, a new right rear Michelin tire, and like you said, we don't see problems on Michelin tires very often. I've got to believe it was cut down with either contact or debris, because obviously there is some debris out on the racetrack after a little pushing and shoving that we saw earlier in the going. So that right rear has been replaced, and now Brumman hoping for a little bad luck for someone else to see if he can get back up and into the fray. That moves Wilmot to second. He had a good run yesterday from the back. We talked about it. He had to start last because of a technical infraction, worked his way all the way back up to third at the checkered flag, and it was behind Mark Brumman that he finished yesterday. He has obviously been in the wars a little bit this morning with that bodywork hanging off the front. That's not going to help him down the straightaways, I wouldn't think, Jeremy, but wondering if he had anything to do with Mark Brumman's right rear. I don't think we had any kind of a replay of it, so be hard to determine, and I've seen no message on timing screen about contact or anything like that, so we'll have to find out. The bad news for Mark Brumman, though, it was either into the pit lane, Jeremy, or off of the pit lane, but he has a pit lane speed violation when he came in to change that tire, so he's going to have a drive-through now. Looking at the 19, working his way through. Sean Quinlan aboard the number 19. Stephen Cameron racing in that orange and blue is a very familiar color to fans. You're used to seeing it on a BMW. They made the switch to the new Ford GT4 Mustang this season, and he's doing a great job here this weekend, really kind of coming to grips with that new Mustang. And it's got to be a big departure when you think about the two different cars. The BMW, I'm sure, felt a lot smaller than this Mustang.
Yeah, sorry, I lost you there, Brian. Hey, look, I found out what happened to the split decision BMW Patrick Wilmot. I gather in the false grid, IMSA decided that he should start to the back because his time, that for some reason there was a miscue in the timing reports for the qualifying order for this race, and times are set for the grid based on your second fastest lap during the qualifying session, which he lost all his times from that qualifying session because of an infraction post technical inspection, because they'd made a spring change and the right out was off, and he failed post race check, so they took away all his times. Well, they decided in the pre-grid that would apply also to this race, so he actually had to start last in the class again, did Patrick Wilmot, even though the official grid shows that he should have been lining up in third. That was the situation, was he had to start from the back, so he's worked his way up now to be in that second position. So thanks there to Jimmy Scott from Split Decision Motorsports for letting us know actually what the situation was.
So Patrick having the same drive that he had yesterday, and now this is a very familiar scene. It's what we saw yesterday, the 25 and the 88 nose to tail, but very different today because of the problems for Mark Brumman. He had that right rear Michelin go down, cut down, and he had to come in and change that, then had the pit lane speed violation, and now back on the racetrack. But Mark Brumman not having the same kind of day he had yesterday, even those two cars were together like we saw them at the checker flag yesterday. Wilmot is by. Brumman not fighting too hard to let him go by, so now Wilmot charging forward, still has that debris on the front. And I find that interesting, though, Jeremy. I thought it was your second fastest lap in qualifying or your second or your fastest lap in the race, whichever was quicker. So I guess they
so did I, but I gather what was his fastest lap in the race yesterday was a 1:57.1, which fine, which is actually slower than everybody else on the grid. So not quite sure how they managed to mess that up, but it is correct. It was just it wasn't until the provisional grid hadn't started in third. That must have been based on his original practice time then, which was taken away from him. So, okay, that explains that at least. Not doesn't really explain why it happened in the first place that they should make that mistake. But he did start where he should have done, and he's quickly redressed that balance and got himself back up into contention.
Saw Miguel Villagomez in the 23 with, I call it the cheese wedge, one of those aerodynamic devices behind the rear tires. His left side, that cheese wedge is loose on the 23, so I'm sure the officials are going to be keeping an eye on that. You don't want that to come off on the racetrack. If it's not posing a real threat right now, they'll let him continue. And obviously, I'm going to say obviously, I would think that when some of that interclass battles were going on, working their way through traffic, he might have gotten a little bit of contact there, and that's loosened that up. But it's hanging on, staying there for Villagomez. Remember, we did not see him at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, did not make the trip up north, but he has been strong all season long. He's got 4 different podium finishes throughout the year, but missing those 2 races have him well back in the championship. But great to see him when they showed up at Daytona. Had a podium there, finished 3rd in the second race, and just been a real asset and a good addition to the paddock here in the P3 category of VP Racing. Just continues to hang on. I would think, Jeremy, that bouncing over the curbs is probably not going to be helping that. And in fact, there is a mechanical black now out for Miguel Villagomez aboard that 23, the Ligier chassis. And he's going to have to come in. They're going to have to deal with that. The officials just looking at it going, it's too big a risk to allow that to perhaps depart and come off on the racetrack.
Yeah, I think that's certainly bad news for Miguel Villagomez there, because, again, a good run going here. And he's running in the 3rd position. There seems to be funny little problems happening for different people out on the racetrack. We saw the 2nd place car in GSX have the problem with a flat tire, and now Villagomez with that bodywork issue. So yes, kind of strange, and that's going to elevate Brian Thenis up one more position. But still, Villagomez is staying out there, and he'll certainly go on as long as he possibly can before he comes in. There's still 17 minutes remaining in this race, but he's done a super job from Ecuador. He's done a fair bit of racing in the Florida area in the FARA Championship. Here he now comes onto pit lane. They're going to get that car down, slowed down to the pit lane speed limit, and they will try and rip off that piece. It's probably an electrical wire that connects to the brake light that they'll probably need to cut or rip off or whatever. I'm sure that the team will do that, and here they go to back to work on that left rear corner. Done, job done. So just to fire it up again, and off he goes. He's going to lose. I don't know, we're going to just see where he comes out, because that was a pretty good work there by that team. Escuderia Abro, and he's going to rejoin the race. He's got clear track around him, so I think he's probably dropped to the back of the field in LMP3, but he's still got a fair bit of time to make up some ground.
It's a 21-second tour of pit lane from pit in to pit out, and then the stop that goes with that. So also saw the 25 in that same shot where we were watching Miguel Villagomez and his crew try to get that piece off the car. The 25 back on pit road. You know, Jeremy, some days They're just not good. And for Mark Brumman, it's one of those days when he served his pit lane speed violation penalty earlier, he sped on pit lane. So he had to come back in and serve yet another penalty. So for Mark Brumman, yeah, he's having fun driving around the racetrack, but not nearly as much fun as he had yesterday. Just not the same type of day. And it all started with that right rear when it went down. Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you from Virginia International Raceway, VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. Just over 15 minutes to go. Jagger Jones has things well in hand overall and in the P3 category. Stephen Agakani second, but almost 15 seconds in arrears. And then Brian Thenis, that's the top three in P3. And in GSX, again, it looks just like yesterday up front. Luca Mars with a big lead. It was over 45 seconds at the line, I believe, yesterday over the number 25 of Mark Brumman. Today, he's got 40 seconds in hand over Patrick Wilmot, who has worked his way forward, as you just told us, Jeremy, from the back of the field at the start. And Frank Depew taking advantage of problems for others. Great run for him in that final podium position right now.
Yeah, true that. It's been a really good weekend for Frank Depew, that Rebel Rock Racing Aston Martin in that fabulous colour scheme. I don't know how you describe it. It's sort of zebra colours, or I guess it's just a camouflage maybe of some sort, but it looks kind of cool. It certainly looks different to everybody else, but also looks different to everybody else is this Ford Mustang, because none of the other drivers can even see it. It's gone so far out front in this race already, with 16 laps completed by that number 59 Ford Mustang. He's 41 seconds ahead of Patrick Wilmot, who admittedly had to start from the back of the field, but he's pulling away at a couple of seconds a lap or more, and making light of this race.
And the race yesterday, Jeremy, remember, we did have one full course caution, so it stacked the field up, and then Luca Mars pulled out the lead that he had. So as impressive as today's performance is, and obviously we still have 13 minutes to go, and he's adding to that gap each time around, but yesterday's drive was just as impressive. He showed up at Sebring a couple of years ago in Michelin Pilot Challenge. He had to miss the Daytona round because he wasn't old enough, right? And so he shows up at Sebring. He's 16 years old, and this core motorsports team, so well run, so well managed, and it was the perfect place for this young man to be. Not only did he get that education, but now he's got an education in helping to develop a car, because he's helped develop this Ford GT4 Mustang. And not only is he getting the track time and the racing experience, but the development experience, and that's going to pay big dividends throughout his career.
Yeah, long-time Ford engineers, Dean Martin and Larry Rehagen. I mean, it's a super organization, as you say, and he's taking full advantage of. Look at this big train of cars here behind Sean Quinlan, who's running in fourth position, but he's made some good ground in this race, and Brady Berman in that Aston Martin, the blue and white Aston Martin that's behind Frank Depew in the camouflaged car, has fallen back a couple of positions during this, back to 5th or 6th place now, and that battle has been developing. Actually, Sean Quinlan has just got past Frank Depew, hasn't he? So Sean Quinlan now up into 3rd position in that class, ahead of at the 2 Aston Martins, and then some LMP3 cars coming through as well. And right behind those two is Angus Rogers in the KMW Porsche and Scott Blind in the Ruckus Racing Aston Martin. So a super 5-car battle there for what is now 3rd position in GSX. There's still plenty of time to go.
Plenty of time to go as Stephen Agakani can not catch a break with traffic. He had it up through the snake, the climbing S's, through that 7, 8, 9, 10 area, and then caught it again as they got to turn 14, and that held him up even more. Each time he seems to come up to traffic, he just catches it in the wrong place, and Jagger Jones continues to extend his lead. Now 26 seconds over Stephen Agakani. Luca Mars, the last time by the line, was 44.8 seconds in front of Patrick Wilmot. So driving clinics being put on both GSX and P3.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that Stephen Agakani doesn't have a problem, because his last lap was a 1 minute 54.1. He must have had a spin somewhere, I think, because he's off the pace that much for sure. So whether some sort of problem right now, Brian Thenis is only 4 or 5 seconds behind him, and the gap between those two cars was over 12 seconds. So we'll we'll try and figure out what's going on there. Meanwhile, there is Brian Thenas working his way through that knot of traffic that's battling for second position in GSX, and Brian Thenas has done a really good job in this race, turning some good lap times and running only 5 or 6 seconds behind now Stephen Agakhani. Incidentally, you talked about at the beginning of the show with the track conditions being completely different today, quite a bit cooler than it was yesterday, and lap times are showing that because the drivers, the engines like cooler conditions.
Oh, and a problem now for Frank Depew in the tires, and I can't tell if that is turn 11 or not. You come up the hill into turn 11, tight right-hand corner that leads you to Oak Tree, and it's real easy to get it wrong there. Let's find out what happened to Frank Depew. And there he goes. Yep. And that's that area into the tires there. You get up there, and Jeremy, you kind of crest a slight hill. The car gets light, and it just drifts out to the outside, and once it starts, you're not going to get it back. I love what they have done here at VIR with the tire walls that they have. You can see that there are multiple bands of tires tied together, and then that belting around them, and you can see how that tire wall has moved with the contact. That's a significant hit there for Depew. You can see how it's moved that tire wall out of the way, but any movement of the tire wall is absorbing energy, and that's why I love what Kerrigan Smith and everybody here at VIR has done. The improvements that they've made have made for safer racing, that is for sure. Damage to Depew's car, I would think this is going to have to bring out a full course caution. This is going to change the complexion of this race greatly.
Hey, well, it certainly is. It's going to make things really interesting for several drivers out there. That's for sure. It's going to give Miguel Villagomez a chance to get back into a top position as well. Still not yellow, which is kind of curious. I mean, the car's a fair way off the racetrack, I guess, but it's not that far off. And I'm sure they're hoping that Frank Depew can get it refired, back it out, and get out of the way to safety. But that's certainly not the case at the moment. And you're right about those tyre barriers. I mean, there's a 15 or 20 foot gap between that first band of tyres and then a more solid barrier as well. It's behind that, so it dissipates that energy a lot more than it would be just if you went into the tyres that are protecting the actual wall.
Yeah, I saw it here.
Out.
Yep, and the IMSA AMR safety team on the way. The rapid response vehicle will get there first, the Porsche, and then the safety truck behind it. AMR always does such a great job in protecting the drivers, getting there to the scene, and making sure the drivers are okay and helping extricate them and getting us back to racing as quickly as possible. But this is I think, Jeremy, the first track where I saw tire walls like this, and first saw them down in turn 1 years ago, and then they started adding more around the racetrack, and it really is just a brilliant idea. When you've got the room to do it, like they do here, having that barrier out from the guardrail, as you just talked about, gives them a way to dissipate energy before you get to a more solid barrier like the Jersey barriers or the guardrail itself.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a tremendous safety feature that has been employed at other tracks around the world as well, and there's no doubt about it. That was a good shot of it there. You can see the concrete wall with the tyre barriers in front of it, but if you've got another tyre barrier about 20 feet in front of that as well, then it makes things a lot less catastrophic for the drivers.
They have continued to improve this racetrack since it was reopened. Remember, VIR has been here for a long time. 1955, I believe, is when it first opened, and then it closed in 1974 for over a quarter of a century before it was reopened and the reinvestment started back in the property. And since that time, it has just ballooned and gotten better and better. Really kind of the first motorsport resort, as they call it, in the country. And there's a hotel on the premises, there's go-kart tracks on the premises, shooting ranges on the premises, all kinds of stuff here. You can come here to watch races, or you can come here to participate in them, so on and so forth. But it is just such a great facility up through the S's, the climbing S's, just before this corner where Frank Depew has had his problems. Some beautiful condominiums off to the side of the racetrack that you can own or perhaps VRBO them if somebody will turn loose of them on a race weekend. Most of the time the owners, they're race fans, right? And so they're here on the big weekends like the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. They're those condominiums. You own one, right, Jeremy? Look, they're building more. If you don't own one, you can get one.
Yeah, they are fabulous, aren't they? They really are cool. And, yeah, I wish. Maybe next life.
Yeah, they are fantastic. And you think about, you know, like I said, the investment in this facility, Connie Nyholm, Harvey Siegel, they're the ones who kind of started the Field of Dreams, right? You know, out of literally it was cornfields and cattle here. Once the racetrack closed, there were places around the racetrack where you saw no asphalt anymore. It completely covered in dirt and grass and everything. It looked like just big fields. And to look at it today versus looking at it in the mid-'80s when it was farm field, just a completely different deal.
Yeah, what a vision that you know, Harvey and Connie had there to restore this track to its former glory and a lot more. I mean, it was always a great racetrack when it was running, and a lot of famous names raced here back in the 60s and 70s. But it's now an absolute model of a racetrack, and you know, there's a whole bunch of different track configurations here, and here we're looking at somebody. It's not actually on the racetrack we're using now. That's on the Patriot course, which is completely separate and inside the main 3.27 mile racetrack that we know as Virginia International Raceway. But VIR encompasses all these other racetracks as well. It's a fantastic facility.
Yeah, and they've gotten Frank Depew now to the south pit with just over 4 minutes to go. He's in a safe location. The AMR safety team can deploy from there, so it'll be interesting to see if we're going to go back to green here. It'll be a couple of laps spread. The lights indeed off on the Mustang safety car. So here we go. Stephen Agakani, the third car in the shot down the back straightaway, is second in the P3 category. He only has Luca Mars in the Mustang. That is the leader in the GSX category just in front of him. We'll see if he can make quick work of Luca Mars. The problem is the restart zone is in turn 17, and you can't pass until the green flag is waved. And so I would think the flag's going to come out relatively quickly, but there's going to be a little bit of time before Stephen Agakani can make work of Luca Mars and try to get to that rear wing of Jagger Jones.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be a two-lap dash.
It is, and we'll find out now whether Agakani actually had a problem before that, because he had been falling back. I think his last couple of lap times weren't too bad, but Brian Thienes is going to see Stephen Agakani. He could see that he was closing on him as well. The good news for Agakani is only one car in between himself and Jagger Jones, but Jagger Jones has already departed the scene, has he not?
But see, and the green flag just came out. Stephen Agakani had to wait to go by Luca Mars because the green wasn't out. So there was a big delay, and what that did was it put Brian Thienes right on his rear wing, and a little contact there with the 51. Ryan Finney, we saw Finney not afraid to put elbows out yesterday, and Brian Thienes returns the favor.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely right. Brian Thienes there. I've been around this sport a long time, he says to Ryan Finney, and what you can do to me, I can do to you. And that's exactly, he gave him a bit of a shoulder check there. Look, I think that's fair enough. Finney did the same thing to him yesterday up at Oak Tree Corner and made the pass, and kind of took Brian by surprise. And I think Ryan, you know, he's been run racing long enough. He's driven a lot of different series, including Indy Lights, of course. So yeah, he knows what to expect, particularly for somebody who's a hardcore racer as Brian Thienes. Really good pass and repass there by that pair, and that's of course the battle for third position in LMP3.
Yeah, and it spoke volumes, didn't it? Brian Thienes was like, I'm not having anything of that because of the deal yesterday where we was put off the racetrack. There was no penalty called on Ryan Finney yesterday, and Brian Thienes just said, I'm not having it. You know, I'm taking that position back, which he did. So good hard racing. And it's always interesting, and we said this yesterday, Ryan Finney, in the races, the car seems to come alive. He seems to race better than he qualifies right now in this P3 machinery. Hard-nosed racer. He's had good finishes this season. He says he's set and has his motorsports plans kind of sorted out for the next few years, they're all sorted out, and that's a big deal. You know, Jeremy, if you've got plans sorted and signed and sorted for the next couple of seasons, that's great for him. But he's been racing well, finishing in the top 5. He's at 4th place finishes, looking for his first podium, I believe. But it's one of those deals where he has work to do every weekend because he's just not qualifying as well as he races.
No, that's right, and if he can fix that, then he'll be right up at the sharp end, perhaps. But Jagger Jones, I think he took the white flag there. So just the final lap here for Jagger Jones and the march to victory. Last time around, he turned a 1:44.7, which is a good couple of seconds away from his fastest lap of the race. So he's just being cautious, I think, at this stage, and going to bring that car home. A little farther back there's Jordan Menzin holding on ahead of Miguel Villagomez. So that is a battle for position there. Jordan Menzin, very new to this sport. He only started about 3 or 4 months ago. So he's got a very steep learning curve. He's driving one of the Performance Tech Motorsports Ligier and doing a nice job here to hold off Miguel Villagomez.
And Menzin, just delightful to talk to. He has big plans and big expectations. When we talked about this yesterday as well, I met him at Mid-Ohio, and he said, I'm going to do these things. And I was like, hang on a second. You got to learn to your craft here. And speaking of learning your craft, I mean, Jagger Jones, from the time he stepped behind the wheel of this number 87 Fast MD Racing with Rimstar Duquesne at St. Petersburg, he made a statement, and he's going to make another statement today out of Hogpen on to the front straightaway, looking for the checkered flag at the end of it. It has been a nearly perfect season. Jagger Jones wins again. Race number 2 at VIR. An absolutely perfect season for him. The one win taken away at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park because of a technical infraction, but on the racetrack, he's finished first in every race that he has run this season in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. Luca Mars, Core Motorsport, down the front straightaway. It's the same drive Luca Mars put in yesterday in VP Racing. He takes the victory again. That will extend his championship lead, and it may lock it down. Patrick Wilmot is going to do the same and finish second, just like they finished yesterday. Jesse Lazar not here because of a problem with his McLaren after a crash in qualifying, and that is going to just extend the championship lead for Luca Mars. Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for Luca Mars may be just a place of celebration all weekend long, don't you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely right. That will put the championship beyond reach of everybody else, and the same, I think, with Stephen Agakani actually in LMP3. But again, a textbook performance here by both of those drivers in this race. Both youngsters, 18 years of age in the case of Luca Mars, and just 22 for Jagger Jones, but driving like veterans, and very, very impressive. I mean, you put anybody against these young guys against anybody out there in this sport in whatever car they're going to drive, and they're going to be competitive, and no doubt have a big future ahead of them.
I was going to say, I was speaking with some IMSA management yesterday, and I just said these two drivers have a place in the WeatherTech paddock. I'm hoping that people are paying attention to them because they are the future of our sport. Jagger Jones with another win. Like I said, every race that he's run, all 8 of them, he's crossed the line first on the racetrack. Stephen Agakani has done a masterful job of managing his championship. He has 3 wins on the season, and he's done everything that he's needed to do to be atop of the championship points. Brian Thenis with another strong drive and a strong message to Ryan Finney there. We saw that, Jeremy. Hey, don't mess with me. And Brian Thenis comes home third. He's leading the bronze championship in P3 as well. Luca Mars takes the victory, and looking back through the rest of it, Sean Quinlan, hey, a good run for him in that Mustang, learning that new car that's new to that team this year. He comes home third. And then the rest of the field, good run for Angus Rogers as well. What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, really good run there by Angus Rogers indeed in that KMW Motorsports with the Porsche 718 GT4 RS, and that was probably Angus's best run of the season. Finished ahead of Scott Blind, who is the the Bronze Cup leader in GSX, so he'll be satisfied with that. He'll want to be on the podium, but hats off to Sean Quinlan there, getting the job done for Stephen Cameron Racing, and also Patrick Wilmot once again for that Split Decision Motorsports team, starting at the back of the field, working his way through and finishing a good strong second position there in that number 88 BMW.
Great racing in VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. It's what we've come to expect, multi-class sprint format racing. Absolutely love it, and love Virginia International Raceway. Up next for VP Racing Sports Car Challenge, Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. That's Petit Le Mans weekend, and that's where the champions will be crowned. They've made statements, but they still have to lock them down. So 2 more rounds to go. That'll be October 10th and 11th from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. For Jeremy Shaw, I'm Brian Till. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in October for more VP Racing.